Well, hello, my friends. This is another exciting episode of Customizing the Clone Wars. This is episode 44, and I am your host. As per usual, my name is Chad Peak, and I come from Peak Obi-Wan Custom Creations on Facebook. Along with me, I have my co-host, and his name is Brian Fulton, also known as Darth Daddy from the Customs for the Kid blog spot. How you doing tonight?
I'm doing really well. We're going to be covering Pursuit of Peace this evening.
Right.
It's episode 44 for us. And this was a pretty interesting episode. And in a lot of ways, it's kind of reflective of what's going on in our own times.
Yeah, tell me about it. What do you mean?
Well, they're talking about cutting a lot of social programs to finance war. And we're kind of going through that right now where they're cutting Meals on Wheels, the heating subsidies that they're doing for people, where I guess people get heating subsidies to keep themselves warm in winter months in colder regions of our country. They're cutting PBS, and they're giving a boost in military spending here in the United States.
Wow. Yeah, so politics heavy for sure. This was the middle episode of a 3-episode arc. The original one that we saw was Senate murders, right? We saw that was that in season 2?
Yeah, I believe so.
Kind of a weird mix-up, and we'll get into it as we go through the episode in regards to what I'm talking about. Last week we talked heroes on both sides, right? And they had the new outfits, right? Everybody had the new outfits.
Yeah, that was pretty cool.
Yeah, so as we go into this one, like I said, this is the middle part. So it goes heroes on both sides, Pursuit of Peace, and then also Senate murders is the final one. So since they had to go back into Senate murders, they had to change the characters' looks back to the way they were previous, you know.
Yeah.
So we'll look at them kind of in a flashback form or in their old 3D models, right?
Yeah, because I started watching it and I'm like, was it Lolo, that other Rhodian?
Yes. Yeah, Lolo.
Yeah, I saw her and I'm like, what's she doing there? And I'm like, oh yeah, okay.
Yeah, so if you're following it in order, folks, on maybe even on Netflix, which has not gotten rid of the Clone Wars yet, isn't that really cool?
Yeah, I was surprised that they were going to anyway, because all that season 6 content, that was exclusive to Netflix.
That's right. That's right. And man, it's one of the first things I've ever seen on Netflix that had 5 stars immediately out of their ratings. You know what I'm saying? I look at the ratings and I'm like, these ratings are terrible. You know, they're not right. I look at some of my favorite movies that I see and they have a really low rating. And I'm like, really? Oh man, I really love that movie, you know? Personally, you know, some of the movies that I see on there, the ratings are not as accurate as I see them. And right away, right off the bat, Clone Wars had a 5-star rating. And here it is.
What I like seeing, like a lot of people that tried to like binge watch it, knowing that it was going off of Netflix. A lot of those original trilogy people who were like, oh, I don't want to watch the Clone Wars, it's a kiddie show. I couldn't tell you how many grown-ups from the original trilogy era ended up saying within the last 2 weeks, like, oh my God, I'm kicking myself. Here I was thinking it was a cartoon for kids. Man, was I wrong.
Right. I know.
And that was refreshing to see. I'm so happy that, you know, some of us older guys are starting to go back and realizing that, like, they're eating crow, but hey, it's okay. You know, you just got the benefit of being exposed to some of the coolest Star Wars we ever got.
Oh God, that's so true. It's so true. It's just, you can go to it anytime. Netflix gave you the ease of watching it, you know, in order, since we've never received it in actual order. And if you're doing it that way, you have the ease of going back and forth, jumping from episode to episode. And it's just awesome. And I've even noticed, you know, we had Jimmy Mack on from Rebel First Radio a while back on episode 42. And we were talking about the Blu-ray and how awesome it was, right? And I don't have the Blu-ray, and I've been looking at the pricing on the secondary market, and it has gone up. Have you noticed that?
Yeah, I mean, I was fortunate enough where I think the first two seasons I had on DVD, and I from three on I started getting them on Blu-ray because at that point I bought the Blu-ray player specifically for when Star Wars came out on Blu-ray, and I'm like, all right, I'm gonna get a Blu-ray player. And not only did I get a Blu-ray player, I bought a whole new TV. I mean, I went all out when Star Wars came out. But after the season ended, I ended up going to like one of those places that had used DVDs, used Blu-rays, and everything. And I found
Mhm.
season one and season two used Blu-ray on the shelf, and I snagged them both. So now I have all the seasons in Blu-ray form. But I was looking at that box set, and it's funny too because I mean, you look right over here. I have the Art of the Clone Wars book right behind me on this bookshelf.
Sure.
But they give you like a mini version of that book that comes with that box set.
Hmm.
And I've been eyeing it. I never pulled the trigger just because I'm not a guy who has a lot of money laying around ever. Especially like to me, that's like if I win the lottery, maybe I'll do that, but I can't justify buying the same thing twice. I'd like to have it for the sake of having it, but I mean, in reality, I try to be a responsible adult wherever I can.
That makes sense, and I'm with you too. I did the same thing. I bought a Blu-ray because Star Wars is coming out on Blu-ray. I didn't have a Blu-ray in the past, and that's mainly why I don't have a Blu-ray of the Clone Wars. But I would really like to have it at this point, just because of things like Netflix, because that's obviously in HD and that's essentially Blu-ray. So it looks really great when I watch it on my TV, and just want it all to be the same, you know what I'm saying, and excellent and awesome. But we're going to get down into this episode. It is more of a political episode, so bear with us, folks. So here we are, and I'll go into what the episode guide talks about. Here, let me get to that real fast. Sorry. And it says, it is the pursuit of peace that we're talking about. The original air date was December 30th, 2010. And we're getting really, really close to that 2011 changeover, where everything is going to start to change. And you're going to see that in our next episode. But it says Count Dooku abandons peace negotiations with the Republic, but Padme refuses to give up hope. She joined Senator Bail Organa and Anaconda Farr in an effort to stop a bill that would create new clones, prolonging the war and stretching the Republic's finances. But the would-be peacemakers are pursued by thugs who want to intimidate them. That's always worded weird. It's peacemakers are pursued by thugs who want to intimidate them. Okay, basically there's somebody after them, right?
Oh yeah, Robin makes his return.
Yeah, that's right.
The finale of season one. So that was cool to see him come back. And then, what is the type of alien that he's with? Oh,
yeah, that I can't tell you. Oh boy.
I usually know it. I mean, I could probably pull it up as we're sitting here.
Yeah, he came from a Knights of the Old Republic game, didn't he?
Yeah. Trying to remember. I ended up buying a custom Jedi of that type of alien right when I first started collecting customs. And it was actually made by I Am Boba Fett, and I have quite a few customs that are made by him now. But it was one of the first customs I ever bought, just because I thought it was such a unique looking alien that I had never seen before. Because I never played any of the Knights of the Old Republic games. I could say I'm not a big gamer. I don't even have a video game system in our home. But yeah, so when I saw it, I just knew it was something unique that I had never seen before, and it's a Selkath. That's the name of the species.
Selkath.
Yep.
Yeah, and we'll get into an episode next season called The Box, and there's another one in there.
Yeah, you did a really cool custom of the Selkath bounty hunter.
Yeah, his name is Man too, but this guy here, I don't know exactly what his name is, but he's definitely a thug, a thug in this episode. But let's jump into this, shall we? The truth can strike down the specter of fear. That's a really weird fortune cookie. The truth can strike down the specter of fear. What do you think about that?
I think that's why we have to protect net neutrality. They're going after it. They want to shut down our access to a fair and balanced internet. They want to create a superhighway, and you want to keep truth out there. You need to keep net neutrality and make sure that the internet stays in a fair playing field where all views are equal and we all have the same access, the same speeds, and nothing is limited. Make sure you fight for that strong and hard, because that's the only way you're going to be able to overpower fear.
Oh, wow. That's nuts. Thanks for that. And here we see the Senate. It's so true. It's so true.
You might as well throw it all out there.
Yeah. I mean, this is politics at its biggest in the Star Wars galaxy, right? This Senate building. And look at all those Senate pods out there. It's outrageous. They're just discussing basically what happened last week. There was a ruse, basically. They infiltrated the Republic. They infiltrated Coruscant, and they bombed it, right?
Yeah.
It was a fake
I thought of, like, you were mentioning what you're going to be sharing tonight, and I know there's a scene in this episode that shows a bar when Rob and Eno and the Selkath are talking, and I know that they show the Biff that you made in that, and there was even another alien that they showed in that scene that you had made that you might want to share tonight. I know when we were talking about, like, prior to coming on, what we were going to be sharing and not sharing, you do have a few more characters that, as I'm remembering the episode, that you could possibly throw in if you even have them available.
Absolutely, yeah. So I'll do that while we go on through the episode. We see in the Senate that it has all kinds of different aliens. I made another Jedi character off of this guy. And you know what's cool about this character is we actually see him in episode 2, which is great. You know, I love when they make the connections to the different characters that are in the movies, also in the Clone Wars. You know what I'm saying?
Now, is this the center that was just an evil plans, maybe on something else with the Jogan fruit?
I feel like it's a different one.
Okay.
They put him in a red outfit, and it wasn't the same voice actor. You know, they definitely put a different one in there. So as we go on with all the politics that are going down, so they just they deregulated the banks, right? You remember that?
Yeah. Yep.
From last week.
Yeah.
So are you seeing that image or no?
I'm seeing Padme.
Yeah, excellent. So basically, she comes on and she's like, we can't keep spending like this, or we're going to go into further debt than we are already in, right? And she basically tells them to stop the war, right? And they were basically saying, you're a traitor for wanting to not be as patriotic as the rest of us are, right?
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah. And so she's kind of got in a tight spot, and she needs some help. So she looks to her friends, obviously. And this is what I was talking about earlier, where we went back to kind of the old look for Palpatine.
Yeah, back to the red outfit.
Yeah, and this is going to lead us into our first custom of the night. This is one that you did, and you've shown it to us many times, but I just love seeing it because it just turned out so excellent. And I'd love to make one myself. Can you tell us a little bit about this custom?
Yeah, sure. I grabbed the Darth Sidious head that came with the Clone Wars Darth Sidious figure, and essentially all I really had to do was heat up the hood a bit and remove it, because it's glued onto what you're seeing is the head underneath. I did have to sculpt some hair onto there. I used Aves at the time. And then from there, it was just a quick paint. I also took the neck from that figure too. So I made a mold of both the neck and the head so I can make necks and heads. And it's kind of cool to see that you could use some of those old figures from like this. I think it was from the Return of the Sith line, and you could use a Return of the Sith figure to make a Clone Wars character because that outfit's so bloused out. It, you know, once you add that neck and that head, it basically trims it down. Now I did have to rework the biceps on there to change the fabric to have that Clone Wars representation. I resculpted the forearms as well, and those hands are from that vintage Padawan Anakin that came with the helmet and the lightsaber. That was from that vintage Phantom Menace line that we got that kind of peg warmed for about a year, but I grabbed a bunch of those figures, and some of the hands from more of the realistic line, they were a little too big, so I went for a smaller hand, and that's why I used that hand in particular. But yeah, I don't understand why, like, because Palpatine was really he was a big character throughout the Clone Wars series, and I'm surprised that they never released a figure of him. I'm sure they probably thought he was going to peg warm, because he's not someone who's going to come with weapons, and he doesn't really have a lot of action to him. It seems like at that point in time, they started winding down figures that didn't have as many action figures.
Yeah, who's going to want an old guy, right?
Yeah, who's going to want an old guy with no weapons? But
where did you get that body, the body for it? Was that an original? What toy line was that from? The Revenge of the Sith?
Yeah, I think it was Revenge of the Sith. I'm pretty sure it was.
Cool. And you basically took that character and you tell us a little bit about that.
All I did was I took the Dremel to the biceps, to the forearms a bit, and then I think I used green stuff at the time because I wasn't using Procreate yet. And yeah, I just resculpted, tried to copy the forms that the character had on the show. And from there, once the green stuff dried, it still actually maintains the action feature. I grab him, but I'm afraid to cause a domino situation. He's right on the shelf behind me. But if you press him on the bottom, his arms still move the way the Revenge of the Sith action figure would. So he still has his action feature, even though he's a Clone Wars character.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate you sharing that for us. Always a great custom. I really enjoy that. And this is what I was talking about in the past, where they had to add the new, the 3D model, right? So so now here we go. We're going to move on. We're still talking about all the different politics. And who is this character that you're seeing here?
I love her. Like, I want to make her so badly. She's one of my favorite, at least aesthetically pleasing. Yeah. She's one of the cooler looking characters that came out of the Clone Wars, especially when it comes to the Senators. She really stands out.
Yeah, and even her name is Halliburton. Halle Bertoni. Yeah. You get that? Yep. You got all the politics. They're so connected to everything that we have going on.
Oh yeah, I mean, she was a big military contract. She was the one who Camino in charge of making all the clones. Halliburton was a company associated with Dick Cheney. Almost all the military bases that were built over in Iraq were all made by Halliburton. And a lot of they call them like the FEMA camps here in the United States. Almost all those are, I think those might have been made by Kellogg, Brown and Root, which is a subsidiary of Halliburton, but it's still a Halliburton, item.
And this is the guy I really wanted to do at some point. He's kind of like Boris Karloff and a refugee from Kiss, the band from the 70s. He looks like Ace Frehley, right? Without makeup. Sure. Yeah, he's so awesome. I would love to get around to this guy at some point. But as we know in Senate murders, he's actually killed, stabbed in the back by somebody. So it definitely moves the story along a little bit when we find out that this guy was killed also. A lot of senators die in this show, right?
Oh yeah, they drop like flies.
Yeah, for sure.
And he's one you wouldn't expect to take a dive, because ultimately he's one of the shadier characters in the Senate.
Yeah, I
But
know.
yeah,
We get a lot of weird ones that are kind of doing shady dealings here and there, and we see this huge holograph of Count Dooku, and he's basically saying, you killed Mina Bonteri, and we are withdrawing our peace negotiations, right?
yep.
So as we move on, I just wanted to show this guy real quick because this is somebody I'm actually working on. I'm going to show you a whip in a little bit. So he's kind of an Aquilish senator that I'm working on. But check out the guy to his right. What do you think about that guy?
Oh, he's awesome looking.
Yeah, that's actually our good buddy Punzignut without his helmet on.
Wow. Yeah, this guy has gold eyes.
Yep, this is the first time we actually see an appearance of our good buddy Punzignut without his helmet on. I thought I'd share that real fast. That my helmet is not removable, but I just thought that was so cool that.
Now the one that I have that you made me, that one is removable, isn't it?
Yes, it is. And it's for reasons like this, that they reuse these digital assets all the time, right? And you can just make so many different things. I thought that the Clone Wars line could have been primed for so many different variations on a toy level. You know what I'm saying? So many different color variations, and they could have sold them and sold them and sold them, just like they're doing with the toy lines, because. Wow, I mean, we have just a huge backlog of just a few characters. Here we go with our toy rants, right? I don't know why they're doing that these days, where we're just barely getting any characters. Why no more 7-figure waves? We get like 3-figure waves, and like they just load up the aisle, the toy aisle. Where with this we could just get all kinds of different color variations and different helmets on, helmets off kind of thing. I even showed a green variant of Punzignut once, didn't I? Not a custom that I did.
In the hallway.
Yeah.
In the hall.
Yeah, it was in the hallway for sure. But I definitely think Clone Wars could have been primed for just various levels of customization and repaints of different characters, right?
Yeah, that's an action figure line that I think could have gone on forever. Just based on what you and I have been doing over the course of the last, what did you say, 7 years or so we've been cranking them out?
Yeah.
Probably more at this point. But yeah, I mean, we can keep going, and that just shows how easily that line could have kept going as well. I mean,
right.
There's still people, like when Jimmy Mack was on, I'd love to have gotten a Zero the Hutt. I would have loved to have gotten that Phase 2 Pre-Vizsla. I mean, there's just so many characters that went unproduced that so many of us would have enjoyed having in our collections.
Oh, I so agree. That's why we're doing it a little bit, right? I was just like, we have to do a show because I have so many Clone Wars customs I just want to share. I mean, the list is endless. It's unbelievable.
I was listening to, do you listen to Toy Run with Jake Stevens and Chris B?
Yes, I've listened to it several times. It's an awesome show.
Yeah, they were talking just this past week. I was listening to their Friday episode, and they were talking about the Hasbro line and how, when it goes up, when their contract ends, they were saying, well, they'll probably renew the contract, but what if, there's a chance that they don't, even though they get their contract renewed, what if they don't get the exclusivity on the 3 3/4-inch line? And they were talking about how great that would be if they, if they at least lost the exclusivity, because then you could have other companies come in and produce things within that line as well. And then we might actually start getting good figures in that line again, where, someone might say, well, you guys are doing 5 POA. We're going to start doing the super articulated ones then. You're doing the ones from, The Last Jedi or whatever that the third installment ends up being, because that's probably around the time that they're going to lose it, or at least have to renew it possibly.
Mhm.
While you guys are doing those, we're going to go back. We're going to make Clone Wars 3 3/4 inch figures again for collectors that collected that line. And it would be
Yep.
really, they were saying like Funko, what if Funko started making droids figures or like the Ewok cartoon figures? Those would translate well to Funko. And, that's something I really hope Hasbro loses, that exclusivity where they're the only ones who are allowed to produce 3 3/4 inch figures, because I do see if there was active competition, for collectors' money in that scale, we might actually start getting the figures we want again.
That's true. That's true, man. I would love that myself. If you were asking my opinion, and I've discussed this with you many times, I just think they're using it as a bargaining chip kind of a thing. They're not producing what we want because they know we'll go right to it. Nothing against 6-inch collectors. I collect 6-inch myself, but I think it would definitely kill the 6-inch if they made a cheaper figure that still looked just as great as what I call modern 3 3/4 inch. You don't really need to talk about articulation anymore. I've been trying to, like when I go on forums and discussions and whatnot, I try not to talk articulation talk. You know what I'm saying? I just say, I want a modern figure. And what they did was they're trying to say that a 5 POA is a modern figure. I don't think so. It's just not. It's just not. And I think I think they're using it as a bargaining chip. They're holding it back because they know
6-inch.
Yeah, they want people to buy a 6-inch, obviously, because they can get more, they can make more money, as a business.
I guess what they were saying on Toy Run was Disney's not really big on giving people exclusivity. Lucasfilm was fine with that, but Disney might not be, because Disney likes to make money wherever they can make money, and they have no problem giving the license to everybody, and they probably wouldn't mind having a 3 3/4 inch line of their own for the Disney stores. And let me tell you, man, that will be the greatest thing ever. I really hope it happens. I do appreciate the things that I've gotten from Hasbro. I mean, the whole room here is full of Hasbro, but I wouldn't mind seeing some competition injected into that line.
I agree. I agree totally. That would be great. That would make it a whole new ball of wax, wouldn't it?
Oh God, would it? I mean, you just have you could have a lot of niche companies that put out niche collections for the 3 3/4 inch line.
Yeah.
And that would be amazing. I would fingers crossed. Don't give them exclusive rights. That's all I got to say.
I hear you. Well, while we're in this lull period, so we call it, right, the dark times, we are back into the dark times. We'll go back into this episode here. I know we get off track every once in a while, but basically, where we were at with all the politics in this episode here, what deregulating the banks has done is it's made the banking clan, is that who they are? The Moons?
Yeah.
It's made them super greedy. Now they don't have to stick to their current price point, and they can just really charge anything they want. And this is going to actually lead us into a shout out, something we haven't done in a little while. I know you gave a little shout out to I Am Boba Fett. He's a fantastic customizer, but we're also going to give a little shout out to our good buddy Ellie Spry, Luke Sprywalker, the art of Luke Sprywalker. You can find him on Facebook. And this is Uncle Anno that's with Padme here. And they're basically talking to this Mune about how the 25% markup from 10% is just completely outrageous. So before we go on, you go ahead and talk about Ellie's custom of Uncle Anno.
All right. Yeah. So this is, are you guys seeing it?
Yes. Go ahead.
Okay. All right. So yeah, this is an Uncle Anno custom that's created by a Star Wars customizer that goes by the name Luke Sprywalker. He's been featured at Star Wars Celebration 6. So he's one of the few customizers that have had the honor of being featured at Star Wars Celebration. He used let's see, the arms and the jacket that you're seeing there. Those are from Indiana Jones figure um, that is usually referred to as the Monkey Man.
Yep.
Um, and the head is from a Greedo, the hands are from Greedo, and I couldn't tell you. I don't know. Do you recognize what the legs are from? Because I do not.
I don't recognize what the legs are from. Maybe he even put something on the front of it there. Um, but I know the boots look like Jedi boots. Maybe
Yeah,
some Obi-Wan boots.
yeah, it's very possible.
Yeah, but
It
I
doesn't
don't
have
recognize
the
those pants.
articulation, but I don't think because of the long jacket, I don't think it's necessary.
Yeah, I agree. I was going to get into that a little bit as we talked about this senator-centric episode that we're talking about here. What is your view? I think if they gave us really fantastic articulation in the arms, why would the legs even need to move, right?
Especially for senators, even if you remember, like in the Return of the Sith line, Attack of the Clones line, none of the senators, like Orn Frita or a lot of the Padmes, a lot of those didn't have full articulation, So I think you definitely want them in like maybe an Ahsoka or an Anakin or an Obi-Wan, but when it comes to some of the other figures, like senators, it's probably not necessary. And I hope Hasbro takes that point of view going forward with their action figure line,
Yeah,
and chooses their battles and say, well, we don't have to strictly do everything 5 POA. Let's cut corners where we don't need to go crazy with the articulation, but when we do have these characters that would be greatly improved by the articulation, let's add it in. And hopefully they find that balance because they're taking a very extreme stance right now.
yeah. Nobody has any articulation, right?
Yeah.
And here we see a picture of Padme with a picture. Do you recognize what's in that image there? This is kind of the Easter egg um, of the episode. That's actually Alderaan. This is Bale's office. So maybe this was like an early Joe Johnston sketch, or maybe even a Killian Plunkett sketch of what Alderaan was going to look like in the Assassin episode, right?
It almost reminds me a bit of didn't Sabine's planet look a bit like that? With the mountains in the distance and the family home like kind of off to the side of the mountains. Or
Yeah,
was that yeah,
yeah.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Very
Yeah.
similar.
This is Alderaan. This is a image of Alderaan. Oh, sad Alderaan. All gone. And of course, as we move on, what that picture was showing us was that they needed to put somebody up against the Senate who knew what they were talking about, that they could get this bill knocked down to get rid of more troops, right? They were basically saying if they ordered more troops from Halliburton, that it was going to bankrupt the Senate, or not so much the Senate, but the Republic, right? Yeah. So, and as we go on, we see that these two thugs, Robo Nino and this other fellow, I'm sorry I don't have his name. I'll have to get it and put it in the show notes, but they are beating up on senators that are trying to oppose this actual thing. And you can see they're all beat up here. And here's that Aquilish guy that I want to finish, but I really only have a whip of him right now, just kind of working. And that's going to be our next custom that I share here. And here he is. I worked on this today. This is actually a coat made out of Procreate, where in the past I've been using kind of this banner material. It's just kind of a vinyl that I've been using. And one of the drawbacks of using Procreate or Green Stuff or even Fix It, I would say lean more towards Procreate or Green Stuff, simply because it has that kind of rubbery consistency, where the Fix It has more of like a resin type consistency, and it gets really
hard, right?
Yeah, exactly. And it's almost like it wants to break. And I never really use this kind of stuff or that material, fix it to be exact, for coats and whatnot. So this is kind of a work in progress, where I showed this last time. This is kind of him without the coat. This is just basically an Obi-Wan body, and then I just sculpted literally over the Obi-Wan head to make the character's face. So
and for that jacket, how do you, you basically make a piece that attached from the from the shoulder draw line and then go down and then kind of like go from underneath the pit, almost like the way the seam of my sweatshirt goes, and then you kind of attach the two pieces? Because I noticed you basically have an opening for the arm. How did you go about attaching that to the figure itself?
Well, what I wanted to do is and I'm guessing this is how people do it when they're making garments, you know, in real life, everyday life. And you can also do this with cloth, soft goods and whatnot. I used this little paper, kind of a little piece of paper there, and I basically shaped it out so that if you look at these little holes here, can you see those good?
Yeah.
So basically those are the armholes, and you know, it basically would fold around the character, and then I connected the pieces together, making the jacket. So this is basically a pattern I used, made out of a piece of paper. And what I did is I you know, flattened out the Procreate, and then I laid this on top of it, and then just cut the Procreate to make the shape. And sometimes you have to like make sure you're letting those materials harden up a little bit. And you know how the Procreate has a little bit less work time, and that's mainly why I use it
than the others. Which is,
yeah, you can do this.
You know what you're doing.
That's right. That's right. And that's why I used that material, because basically it hardens a lot faster than say Fix It or even green stuff. You know, it takes a little time to dry with those materials, and you just
have to paint your underlayers before attaching that. That way, you didn't have to worry about like trying to stretch it later to paint in all the areas underneath that jacket.
Well, I did paint a little bit, but I don't necessarily paint the colors if they're not going to be seen. I know that jacket's not going to come off.
Yeah.
Mainly. There are elements of that jacket. I'll jump back into it real fast. And are you seeing that there?
Yep.
I know that there are elements like this upper portion here. That was an additional piece as well that I made a circle out of using different round cylinder type things. Like I used an air can to make that like kind of that round shoulder piece. And I just basically folded it over the coat. So I know this figure, the jacket's never going to come off the figure. You can make them so they are removable, making them closer to what an actual figure looks like. But I know that it's not going to come off, so I'll just paint what you can see here, and then I'll leave the rest unpainted, actually. So there you go on that one. And that was just kind of a progression of where I went from there. But he's still not done yet, unfortunately, folks. I'm sorry about that.
Well, 100% sculpted figures can sometimes take up to like 20+ hours to make. I mean, they're not easy to put together. I mean, if we may make it look easy, but it certainly isn't. It does take quite a bit of time.
That's true. Yeah, I run into that all the time. You know, the time factor, how much time you have in your day. You know, man, I wish I could sit here and customize all day, but I have a day job, and I can't always get to finishing them up. You know, I have another one just off to the side here that I'd like to show maybe towards the end of the show, but it's my Admiral Trench, and he's coming along nicely, but he's still going pretty slow. But as we get back into the episode, we find out that Dooku is in charge of these thugs here, and he wants to take Padme out, right? And he's like, take her out. And if you're seeing these guys, they're basically in this bar, right? It's another really awesome bar. One of the greatest things that Dave Filoni does is he puts these characters in these seedy hideaways, right?
Yeah, and these guys are certainly seedy. Did you see, like, after they get the order to kill Padme, they were like, yeah, and they're like clanking glasses. They couldn't be more thrilled to like get a job to murder her.
Yeah, I know. And there's also other characters in there I wanted to share. I've shared this Godel before, but he's one of the patrons, the cantina patrons of
You
this.
see him in the background for sure.
Yeah, you see him, and you see all kinds of different characters that are.
The Bith was in there.
Yeah, the Bith. I don't have a picture pulled up of him right now. Sorry about that. But as we go along, just for time's sake and whatnot, they go and they try to take her out, right? And there's that awesome Keystone Cop droid that I really want to get to at some point. And she tries to get away from these guys. And she's on this big speeder chase with them and everything. And these local authorities, right? They stop her, and obviously they get away, right? Because they're like, "What are you doing, speeding? You've stolen a speeder bike." And she's like, "I'm a senator. Go after those guys, you idiots."
Yeah.
Right. So in the end of this episode, hopefully we got around to.
I do have a picture of your Bith if you want me to share it real quick.
Yeah, you can. Yeah, if you'd like to. You're talking about while we were in the cantina, right?
Yeah, because this is the only one I could find on like the last second notice. He obviously wasn't holding an instrument in that particular scene.
Yeah.
But this is the one that the Clone Wars version of the Bith that you had produced.
And they even use him as a senator as well. They use him so many different times. Yeah. What a cool character!
I think he was the senator in this episode.
He sure was.
Think about it.
Yeah, he sure was.
He showed up twice. He showed up in the cantina, and he showed up as a senator. And you actually made this out of that Obi-Wan body as well. So that just shows you how you could do a lot with that Obi-Wan.
Oh man, that Obi-Wan body is so versatile, and I think I'm using it so much because I got it overseas. I got like 17 of them.
I just bought 10 more myself. I just got them in the mail the other day.
Yeah, and that's the reason I use it, mainly because we're back to that era of modern figures, right? How simple is that character? And he's so underrated. I call him the Mortis Obi-Wan, basically. And we're going to be getting into the Mortis episodes coming up, but it's just a really basic Obi-Wan. I don't have an actual character up here, but it was the first rendition of Obi-Wan before they moved into the third.
Yeah, the last incarnation that we got.
Yeah, the third look for him, which surprised me. You know, it was like, oh, main characters, they continue to do this. I really liked the Obi-Wan that they made for the Mortis one, but they had to move it along and keep those main characters circulating, right? Yeah. So that was another character that I utilized that body for. And thanks for sharing that. I appreciate it.
Oh, no problem.
Yeah. So at the end, once Padme gets back, she's talking to her aide Tekla, this gal Tekla, and it's really sad to hear her story because Tekla's family, because of these periodic blackouts and the cost of the war and everything, they're not eating, they're not bathing. It's terrible to think that Padme, she works for Padme, and this lady is just like, her family is starving.
It is a great lesson saying, like, what's the sense in spending all this money and defending our way of life if you destroy our way of life to, pay for all this defense? And that's something our current government can learn a lot from, because we already have the most inflated military budget. We have a military budget the size of all other military budgets on the world combined still does not meet our military budget, and our current government wants to inflate it even more. And to do so, they want to cut all our social programs, and they're going to lose the support of the people. And I think, they should almost have to sit down and watch this episode that George Lucas produced, because it's an important lesson.
Yeah, George was really brilliant about putting current events into the episodes of the Clone Wars in creative ways. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, indeed.
And here we're seeing that Bail also was attacked by these thugs, and what happens is Padme has to speak in his place because he was the most convincing senator for this task, right? So since he can't do it, she comes up with that good speech about Tekla and how she can manipulate the talks that they've been having, right? And this was the senator that I wanted to show. This was the custom that I showed last week, the whip of it. Still didn't really get her done, but I've got her a little bit further. And here she is. If you're seeing that there, this is just a whip of that senator look for Padme. I really wish they made this character. You know what I'm saying?
They made so many cool Padmes. I mean,
yeah.
I could probably spend a good year just making the different Padmes that were
making every Padme, right?
That would be
yeah.
Sometimes I wish I didn't have a job just so I could really devote a lot of time to the Clone
Wars. How many times does that come up every single week? I'm like, man, I wish I was home creating customs. That would be
every
great.
Day,
every single day. That would be great. But this is my Senate. I call it my Senator Padme or my Senate Padme, where I shared this version of her last week. You can kind of see the progression of how far I've gotten on her. Not very far, but as far as the hair goes and whatnot, I grinded all that down. If you're looking at it there, it looks like something out of Pan's Labyrinth or something. You can see that I grinded it all down, and what I'm going to do, I'm going to go back and create. You see these things in her hair here. I'm going to basically use that vinyl material, and I'm going to create ribbons and whatnot in that shape, and drag them up the hair and glue them on, right? And some of the details will come a little bit later, but. This is kind of a combination of what we were talking about early in the episode. I do have a piece of soft goods here, but the legs underneath there, they don't articulate at all. They move back and forth on the pelvis, but you don't really need any articulation under there. And we've seen Senator Padmes all the time that have absolutely no articulation in the legs, and I really think that's okay. I would almost prefer fluent arm movements, modern articulation in the arms, and just have the look of the dress look accurate. You know what I'm saying?
Oh yeah.
And there's just a little whip there I thought I'd share. But towards the end of the episode, basically, I think this is the moment where we find out, and I think we were just starting to learn this, that what is his aide's name? Masameda, right? Yeah. I think back then when we saw this, we were starting to realize that this guy was in cahoots with Palpatine. We found out that
he was almost his right hand.
Yeah, he knew all the time, didn't he? He was the guy that was there that was let's pull the strings however you want, It was basically his dark aide, right? He's always
which is interesting. Right?
Yeah.
You really didn't see him at all though come, original trilogy. So I know I did hear that somewhere along the line in the new novels that are coming out, you learn a little bit more about what had happened with him. I just don't know which book it was. It wasn't one that I've read yet.
I believe he was in Tarkin. and he was also in
Okay.
what
I
was
read Tarkin.
what was the first book that came out of the new canon?
Was that the one with Luke on the cover? Was it the
No, it was the what are those books called? Oh, I'm drawing a blank right now. Sorry, folks.
young adult ones? The smaller, shorter
No,
books?
no, no. These new ones that are talking about the new canon, the birth
Okay.
of the First Order.
The Aftermath one.
Aftermath. Thank you. Aftermath. He's definitely in Aftermath.
Oh,
Uh,
interesting. Okay.
he is in Aftermath. So is Gubacher. You know, the guy that does the.
Yeah, Gubacher was actually in Catalyst, the introduction to
Yes.
Rogue One.
Yes. Yes.
Which
I
was
love that
right here.
they put these Clone Wars characters in there, and even in Rogue One, we see a very similar image that we're seeing in this background here. Lots of beautiful Coruscant backdrops in this episode, right?
Yeah, very much so.
But I think what happens here is they're discussing things, and we've come to realize, even way back in the Clone Wars, that Palpatine was going to get rid of the Senate at some point in time, because he basically says we have to let the wheels of the Senate turn, right?
Yeah, that whole Senate won't be there come New
Yeah, I know. He what does he do? He basically dissolves.
Hope. Senate. They talk about it in that boardroom meeting where Body gets choked out by Vader.
Yeah, that's
I
true.
think that's when they say that's the end of the Senate.
That's true. Wow. Yeah. So that was the episode, and um, that will conclude, the Senate, the political type episodes for
Yeah,
a
that is
little
the last
while.
one, huh? At least, yeah.
I think so. I think so. Now it's going to get interesting come next time. Next time that we talk about it, because we're going to go right into.
The meteor episodes for the season.
Yeah, I think the next one up is Nine Sisters. Is that right?
Oh, it is. Yeah, I'm excited about that.
Very cool. Very cool. And we'll definitely be talking about that next week. When I am not here, I am on Facebook, and that's at Peak Obi-Wan Custom Creations. And you can find me on Clone Wars Custom Figures. I'm also on Instagram at Peak Obi-Wan Custom Figures. Or no, yeah, Peak Obi-Wan Custom Figures. I'm drawing a blank tonight. Sorry. But yeah, that is usually where I am. And you can, of course, find us on YouTube, right? Where can we find you when you're not here?
Best place to find me would be at the Customs for the Kid blog. I don't really have it up at the moment. Normally I do, but I don't have it today. So yeah, it's www.customsforthekid.blogspot.com. Actually, I can share it. All right, so once you go there, you can get all the links that the blog has to offer for our social media. We are on Facebook. You can find us on the YouTube channel that you're watching us on now. We're also on Twitter, Tumblr, Instagram, and I think we could also get us on Pinterest. But yeah, that's all the places that you could find us.
Awesome. Well, until next week, thanks for joining us, folks.
Take care, everybody, and may the force be with you.